this very morning, we are going to focus on the element of faith. It's a critical thing, and it's one of those things that bring us down. Most times when we are told have faith, we may not be sure, how do you get to have this faith? This is a serious thing. Whether we are going to sit our exam, we are going to look for partners in marriage, we are going to run a business, we are running a business, or we are looking for a job, for promotion. Any element, every element of our lives will require faith to move on. Whether we are praying for people, or we are going through some difficulty, or we are sick, we want to get well, we are fighting a terminal illness, or whatever is called terminal. I'm told that there are no incurable diseases, only incurable people. So this is a very critical element, and that's why today we want to take some time to check whether we are better equipped in terms of faith, whether we understand what it means and how we can make ourselves understand it better, or be able to acquire that faith. It's a big thing. Even when people are praying, they end up not even getting what they want. People just saying prayers, but not really that which has not really with faith, even as little as a mustard seed. So we will read briefly and then discuss. Yeah. So who we are going to read from the role of faith. Anybody who wants to start reading for us?
Okay. The role of faith. Faith is worth almost everything. If you could put it on one side of a balancing scale and find something else on the other side to make it balance, perhaps you would realize that very few things can be compared to faith. And it begins with you. That is faith in yourself. It is a very indispensable attribute in anyone who is marching to greatness. The first time I attended a presentation for a network marketing business, I heard that one of the qualifications for success in the business was faith. Faith in self, faith in the business, faith in the products, etc., etc. I had to believe in myself in order to make it in this business. It did not make sense for me then until I hit a snag. That's the time I went back to the requirements in order to evaluate myself and reflect on the lessons. It became crystal clear. I had not bought the concept. I had not really been sold into it, and thus did not have ample faith, even as tiny as a mustard seed, to keep me growing. The truth dawned on me: no faith, no success. Whatever you think you are, you really are, or at least you are becoming. Therefore, Clement Stone stipulated, whether you think you can or you can't, either way you are right. This means that people who win are people who believe in themselves, and thus they expect to win. The converse is normally true. You must see yourself winning in order to win. You must have seen yourself a loser in order to lose. No in between, no chance. The question about believing yourself, now that you could be thinking about it, could be, what if I believe I cannot? Would it be possible to believe otherwise? And that is what I am here to tell you, that you can actually change your belief. It is possible to influence your mind logically and methodically to believe what you want it to believe. If it were not possible, then naturally, would not have been a reason for this book, let alone many others in the streets. How do you do it?
Looking for solutions to unlock my business, I kept reading books and pondering. Then one evening, a business leader came from a neighboring country, Uganda. He was doing great, and so I honestly respected him. I heard he was going to have a talk one evening, and so it was only prudent that I should attend. He started by saying, start of quote, if your business is not growing, stop and ask yourself whether you really believe in your business. Do you really believe that you are in the right business? Do you believe in yourself? End of quote. That's the point I remembered, the issue of qualifications I was given earlier. I realized that my level of faith was not impressive. I had to do something and do it fast. I had to influence myself to the new beliefs. My business was a total reflection of me. If I had no faith in what I was doing in my business, in my products, in my economy, I had no chance. So I went out to look for how to get this faith. More so, being a scientifically inclined person who did not imagine success could have a faith angle, and discovered how it works. My formula, therefore, of doing this normally entails some form of reasoning. It's fairly simple. First, let us start with the question, is what you want to do doable? Most of the times, you will find the answer to be an absolute yes. Let me give you a story. When I joined the university, my first few months were not exciting at all. The physics units were extremely tough. Most of those units assumed the mathematics units, which we were supposed to have done in order to make them bearable. Some of the mathematics units that were even supposed to be done in the second semester were already being applied here. Many of my classmates were depressed. People would run to the library very early in the morning to read and research. This would continue literally the whole day unless there was a lecture. The practicals were equally not encouraging at all. Some people gave up and transferred to other courses. In fact, most of us would go to class to sign the attendance list and take notes if possible, not to understand. One of our lecturers, being frank with us, advised that we have to choose between either taking notes or trying to understand. But because it would not be possible to understand at that time within the class period, he advised that taking notes and then trying to understand later would be ideal. It was during these trying times that a relative called and asked how I was doing in college. I lamented in very many words how tough life was with academics. After patiently listening to all my groaning and testimony of torture, he simply asked, are there other people who have done the exact same thing you are doing? And you can guess my answer. Start of quote, so it is doable, end of quote, he said. Start of quote, you can do it, end of quote. I got the sense. I embraced the attitude of I can do it. I bought the first installment of faith in myself.
Therefore, one way to convince your mind is by asking, has it been done before? If it has been done, then it can be done, and thus you too can do it. Though this is not an absolute test, since at times you will have to do what hasn't been done before, but it is a starting point and would increase your level of confidence. If someone else can do it, why not you? You too can do it, and perhaps much better. Have faith in yourself. The more trust, The more you trust your intuition, the more empowered you become, the stronger you become, the happier you become. By Giselle Bardchen. Now, sometimes you have no evidence that it can be done because no one ever did it. Here, all you need to do is to consult your heart. It will hardly disappoint you. If deep in your heart you realize the urge to go ahead and do something, it means you can do it. Do not listen to your mind or your logics, just your heart. Do not listen to what others say or how others judge you. They are never accurate at all. Besides, some of the statements they would use to describe you are driven by envy and selfishness. For my case, convincing myself that I could go to the university took the second option. I had not seen anyone go from our village, more so one whom I could identify with. It was a matter of listening to my heart. It is very important at this point that you do not follow your mind to rest or to focus on those negative thoughts that discourage you from taking action. I was so convinced and determined that I told myself I would do whatever it takes. According to me, it would take even 10 years. It would take me going to look for something to do to generate income that would be sufficient to pay my school fees, and finally, after passing exams, to look for money for the college. That is the university. My little knowledge then was that if it is difficult getting fees for secondary school, it would be many times more difficult to pay university fees. But that would not stop me anyway. I had the determination within me and I was unstoppable. I set out to go fishing in order to gather some little money. Fishing had been a lucrative business in our region and the sole source of livelihood for many people. So for the first time, I set out with some friends to the other side of the lake, a place called Seme, to fish and earn some money. After staying there for about 3 weeks, no results were forthcoming. Nothing to smile about. If you really want to know what Apostle Peter and his companions went through when they were found by Jesus of Nazareth, having tried the whole night to catch fish in vain, you can ask me. The words of Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States, it was not exactly fun. For some reason, all the fish agreed somehow to perhaps attend some retreat at an unknown location, and our efforts were fruitless. It is one of the hardest experiences you can go through. I figured out that besides being far from home, risking my life in the task of fishing, nothing much was going to come out of it, at least that soon. You may want to call this quitting, but that's not true. My mission was looking for fees and going back to school, not fishing. So, against the wish and advice of my comrades, I chose to go back home. Some of them jeered and even confessed that no one ever went there to do the fishing and returned to school. I did not listen. Having returned home, I engaged in a few other types of fishing and my known trade with some other friends, and the story was not any different, only riskier health-wise. Walking in very cold waters early in the morning, moving in water weeds that scratch the body, and most of the times, when the sun comes up, you feel really terrible and you long to stay in the water instead. My body was cracked and close to that of a lizard. My legs and nails were colored. Something told me that if I continued like this, I would even get some of the ailments associated with water, and that would be difficult, uh, bearing in mind that I was not earning money that would take care of my hospital bills. No one would take that responsibility either. at least as far as my experience could tell. I therefore left to go and start a hawking business in town. It was safer and a little simpler. It entailed going around with sweets and chewing gum, which I later dropped and started selling boiled eggs. By the way, I was the first person to peddle boiled eggs in my hometown, Kindu Bay. Even today, whenever I go back home, I see someone who started in my days still doing it. Isn't it that amazing? Decades later, the guy is still on the same trade, doing the same things the same way. Perhaps it is his call. Call it faith in his product. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela. I would love to tell you that I finally earned enough money to pay my school fees, but I would be lying. The money I was earning was as little as chicken milk. It could not do more than putting food in my stomach. But yes, I must admit that one of the greatest skills that I lacked in my life and thus contributed massively in retarding my success is personal finance management. I was good at making money, but not very good at managing it. You cannot be successful without this skill. I'll talk about this later. I did not give up my dream. I did not listen to people who would discourage me. Some relatives, because I seemed to be suffering, advised that I should go to my maternal uncle's place and live with them. In my view, that was not a very good advice. It would not help me to be in school. Besides, I had learned from experience that if anything good had to happen to me, it is up to me to take the full responsibility and make it happen, not to entrust someone with it. Thank God this revelation came to me earlier. It had helped me a great deal. If you still want to expect your help to come from others, I pity you. It will do you a lot good to start taking responsibility. With all these meanders in my journey to pursuing education, I never let go. I was determined. I had faith in myself, faith from the bottom of my heart, not from others. No matter what you are pursuing, this is my advice. You may keep changing the course, but do not change the goal or vision. You will win if you don't quit. Whatever it takes, believe in yourself. Thank you. Yes, let's reflect on that, good people. What is it that touches you in that, and what is your contribution? What would you like to share? Let's get started.
Good morning.
Good morning, Elsie.
Well done. Well done, OPP. I'm so proud of you that you were so confident. I mean, you had so much faith in yourself that you could actually know when you've taken a wrong turn to actually quit and be bold enough to take the right path. I'm really proud of you. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peter Paul.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Nice to hear. I got the tail end of it, but it was very inspiring about having faith in yourself. And this is one thing that we should really, really strive to encourage people to have faith in themselves. And of course, if you have faith in yourself, it means you have faith in God, who created you in his own image. And he did not make a mistake. You are worthy, and everybody on the planet of the earth is worthy. And nobody should come and tell you otherwise or sway your path, you from your path. So that talk is very inspiring. And on my own, I can also have a parallel experience where I can say that, when you're working in the civil service, job groups are very, very important. You're supposed to behave according to the job group you are. but that does not determine your destiny. Your destiny is in the hands of God, and of course yourself, listening to God and listening to yourself. And you tell yourself, I too can achieve, I too can do it, I too can make it. No matter what other opinions are or how people push you left and right, if you have that belief in yourself and you don't succumb to being classified in the social strata or, you know, grouped, you belong here, you belong there, you yourself know where you belong. You belong in the kingdom of God, and the kingdom of God is here with us. Yeah, in our Father we say, your kingdom come, your will be done. So who are you to say that God's will not be done in your life? So thank you for that encouragement, and I wish we could have these and more young people here, because they are letting themselves be influenced by the so-called influencers who live a very artificial, fake life, socialites and such, and yet inside they are empty. So it is good to be full from inside. So what the outside think really will not matter. So thank you. Let somebody else also give their view.
Yes, thank you very much, Lucy. Actually, one of those troubles I had when I was starting on in my business, network marketing business, was I realized that having faith in God is a challenge, but having faith in myself was even a bigger challenge. And that is something that I think many people go through. You know, most of us say we believe in God, but then we have some doubts. Yeah, that is where when a good example, we were discussing this with somebody yesterday, I think so. Like when COVID came in, we believed that God can help us in every other thing, but not necessarily in COVID. And so we could close churches. And we believed that when we go seeking for God in church, we are more likely to get COVID. And for those of us who receive communion, receiving communion would give us COVID and all sorts of things. So I realized that we may sometimes say, I believe in God, but our actions, and I think that's why the Bible states, James states that it is, if we have faith without works, it's dead. Our actions don't say that. And then the other thing I learned is sometimes we don't believe in ourselves. We find it even much easier believing in God, but not in ourselves. And then I came up with the philosophy that God believes in us even more than we believe in our own selves. Of course, that is right because He created us. But I think we also need to up our game in believing ourselves. And that's why God will allow us to go through certain situations, knowing that we can handle it, but we don't believe we can handle it. That's my thinking. And so it's not quite an easy task. We start a business, but then we quit. We start something, and then we quit because we don't believe we can do it. Yeah, so and so can do it, but not me. Yeah, I think maybe he's gifted differently, and I know we can relate with some of that. Yes, Humphrey, you can say what is in your mind. COP Mark. Are you able to speak? I see Humphrey wrote something. Good morning. I'm glad to be here. First time. I'm keenly following. Okay, Rachel, you want to say something?
Yes, PP, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wow. I'm so encouraged, PP. I'm learning a lot. I thought I'm a woman of faith, but I feel challenged this morning. But I think my faith has been lifted higher. The word of God says faith comes by hearing and hearing. So I've been lifted this morning because your faith at that early age, for sure, you must have it was real faith at that early age, and I'm encouraged of what you went through and you have made it. For me, what I would share recently is about my faith in my journey of work. At times, it came through uh, facing challenges and being pushed. Because I remember when COVID-19 came, I almost gave up, but I could feel in myself that there is something still pushing me. What I started is what I should be doing. And when I came back in town, it wasn't easy. Okay, I would say I'm a mother of two, a single mother of two. And with the responsibilities I had, it was tough. And I remember when I came back, I was being hosted by a friend, which was a miracle for me. And that is what confirmed to me that God still wanted me to pursue what I had started. But it reached to a point things are not working out, and I am almost giving up. And now my children are in school. And when I sought for help from family, one of the family member declared if I want to be helped, I go back up country so that I can be assisted. My children can be assisted while I'm there. And I was like, now that is the end of my career. How do I go back to shags? Where do I start? What people will talk? What will I say? And I said no. I had started a business of selling rice. So what I did, I pushed the business of rice. I started I would say it is like a kibada. And I was selling rice. I incorporated other cereals. I brought in even bananas. But surprisingly, when I started that business, I did it only for 3 months because what I did with the bananas, I started ripening in bananas from where I come from. There are so many bananas, so I could access bananas. But when it came to ripening them, the bananas were not ripening well, they were getting spoiled. And I did that for 4 rounds until one day I was seated there and a lady whom I had coach on financial management told me, I want rice, but I want to pick it from your shop. So she passed by. When she came, she sat there. We sat for about 3 hours. Then she challenged me, Rachel, you agree with me, take me positively, but whatever you are doing is wrong. Because I believe the knowledge you have and how you have helped me to be where I am today, so many people need that knowledge and need that help. So me, I still believe in your purpose of training people on financial management. So please, I think this one is not right for you. What help would you want? And I felt challenged that day. And for sure, I told her, let me go, think about it, then I'll give you a call. And that was my last day in that shop. When I went home, I sat down. I didn't sleep that night. And I evaluated myself. I thought thoroughly. Then I called her and she told me, I'm ready to support you. You have helped me. I will hold your hand until you are up again. Fortunately, within 2 weeks, I was called for a job that is now, that was in 2020 as we ended 2020, now we are coming to 2021. I got an opportunity to work and a contract which helped me and to come back on board and stand on my feet again last year. And that was a confirmation to me that God is with me and is helping me in this journey. So I should not give up. And from there, my faith was lifted up. And since then, I'm not yet there. I'm still not, I can't say I have established myself, but now from that time, my faith was lifted and I'm able to push on and I'm seeing light at the end of the channel. So for sure, having faith in yourself is very important. And I took it positively when I was rebuked by my own client who I was mentoring. So that is what I wanted to share. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That's quite inspiring. Actually, you reminded me that when I started building people, after some years, I think like 3, I was working with somebody. It was so successful. This is somebody who had gone through, who had lost a lot of property during the post-election violence in Eldoret and those are the other areas. So he was starting afresh, and he was really distressed. After 3 years, he came to me and told me, "I'm now very happy. You really helped me. I've even bought myself a car and bought my wife a car." And I was imagining, how come I've been building people and they're even doing much better than me? And some other people would chat me even on Facebook, where, "Hey, you really helped me. Nowadays, I'm doing this and that." So that's quite inspiring. I like the way your guy rebuked you. Now, during COVID time, many people lost their businesses and even other things. And it was largely because they lacked the faith. They believed more in COVID and the news than they believed in their God, than they believed in their capacity. And that is something that affects us to date. When calamity comes, we are like Peter, who looks at the wave, the ocean wave, the current, and we are not looking at the Jesus we are supposed to look. We are not being still and knowing that is God. That's a big problem. And so when our businesses are not doing right, when we are not getting customers, it is the faith we lack, apparently. When we are not growing as we should, it is usually the faith that is the problem. You see, and that's why it's important. I think this is quite a serious thing. I took time trying to understand where can I buy this faith if it exists? Because people can tell you have faith, but it's not as easy as just have faith. Yes, Aloysius.
Yeah, thank you, Paul Peter. Now I have gotten the inspiration from the Bible. Probably, let me give the verse I have gotten. It is Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1. Says, now faith is the assurance of the things hoped for, the conviction of the things not seen. That is Hebrews 11:1. And I was inspired today that as you all know that me, I'm Ugandan, but when I was coming in Kenya for my studies, I was convinced, I had faith that where I'm going, I will be happy, I will enjoy and do my course, and God will be, and even God will be there with me. So when I came to Kenya, I never knew anybody, I never knew Kiswahili, I never knew anything, but I was lucky that I enjoyed the moment and I enjoyed my little time I was there, those 5 years. And I was inspired today. I'm sorry to say that one. Lucy Mwangi, she's part of the group. I'm sure also she's happy to see me here. She was my mother, no? Can you imagine a Kikuyu lady, a Kikuyu family befriending a Munyankore from Uganda? You don't even know where he comes from. That means what I read, what has inspired today, the conviction of things not seen. I was convinced that somebody will take care of me. She really took care of me. I was a son of her, and I'm sure she's also happy that I'm here. So faith is believing in even what you are not sure of, but you know that there is somebody who is above, can take charge. Thank you. I brought that one in the context of the Bible. Thank you.
Thank you, Aloysius. It's good to mention at this point something I love to share with people a lot of times, that most of us try to manipulate God, or we are praying for something, but then we also advise God that this is the only way I think you are going to help me. And we do not want to let God be God. We do not want to know or to appreciate that his thoughts are beyond our thoughts, that his ways are beyond our ways. I'm praying for money, but I know that money can only come from my salary. So I'm praying for more money, but I know that it can only come if I'm promoted in a job. I'm praying to get maybe food today, but I believe it can only happen if I buy. You see, and those are the things that affect our faith. My thing, from the text, you realize that I had even thought that I will have to go look for that money to go to school. But I didn't use my money. I didn't even put a deposit of my own money. But it's because I also let it open. Let me do what I can do, but somehow I could feel that it's going to happen. I had that conviction. I had that faith. I did not know how. But later I realized that enough of us clip our wings, stop our progress, because we are trying to advise God. And one thing I've learned with God, maybe your God is different, is that the moment you want to take charge, he lets you take charge. And then you don't make it. That is when you get stressed. That is when you start realizing that things are not working, and even you lose faith. It's important to note that we must let God be God. We play in our domain, and he plays in his domain. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aloysius. Somebody else would like to say, we are talking about faith for those people who just joined us. How do you acquire faith? How do you keep that faith? I can see we have men and women of faith here, so they can also share, like Rachel shared.
So people, let me
Yes,
go.
yeah, thank you.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I think one of the things I ask people most of the time is, how good are you grounded? You know, and my intention for asking this question is how strong is your faith when calamities strike? How long are you able to hold? You know, and this conversation has come at the right time. Last night when I saw the message through, I was thinking through something that I read about a young man called Kimiti Wanjari. I don't know whether you guys read it on the news. This guy had started doing something. Started a real estate company. They got a funding of 350 million. The project took 8 years to build. And then eventually last week, this young man was swallowed by the earth. He committed suicide. And again, it came to mind. I asked myself, how grounded are we? Despite everything that happens to us, how strong is our faith? How can we hold when everything is not going according to plan? And I don't know whose plan it is, because we have our plans and God has his plans. Yeah? And faith is something that plays a key role in our lives. It is not about how successful or how we've been able to achieve so much, but our faith are tested when everything else crumbles. Are we able to hold? Are we able to continue fighting? You know, are we able to keep on doing what we're doing? And from the book, I admire the resilience that you had. You know, even at those points that you were supposed to be giving up, those points that you're supposed to say, okay, I've hit the dead end, let it go, you know. But you hit the rock bottom, and then you use the same rocks to build up what you want to achieve. And yeah, we are in a society whereby we are living not on our own conviction, but on other people's standards of life, where you want to live so that so and so can see you having this and having that. And that means that our faith is weak as individuals. We are projecting this, but on the inside, we know we are not able to hold. And it is something I've always advocated for, despite everything else. What should hold us is our faith. And so this conversation has come at the perfect time. We really need to look at to stop looking at other things, and then we focus on our faith. How strong is our faith in whatever it is that we are doing? When everything is going against you, how can you hold? How are you able to go back to God and just, you know, keep on praying for whatever it is, no matter how long it will take, but just consistency And it's not all about just appearing in church every day, every Sunday, It's the conviction that you have within you as an individual, inside yourself, the belief. And I think that is the key thing that will drive us as humans, faith in ourselves. Because if we have faith in ourselves, then we'll have faith in other people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You've said quite an important thing. How long can we wait? Yes. How much time do we give God? Do we say, well, I've waited long enough, please let me take charge? And we were discussing this again with somebody yesterday, that enough times we tell God, okay, let me take charge of this, afterwards I will come back. Yeah. Yes, Simeon.
Yeah, thank you, OPP, and good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think this has been one of those really interesting topics, because since yesterday when you sent the communique about it, I've been reflecting about it and listening to what Rachel talked about, and saying that she was challenged by your conversation about this. I think I'm in the same boat with her. And my take on this is faith is not foolproof. And in a very positive way, it is not foolproof, because there'll be times you'll be tested. And that is a very important thing. So what you need is to make faith a habit. It brings me back to my childhood. And I remember when I was, I had finished my class 8, and now I was supposed to join Form 1. My dad had recommended to me a school, and I was really against it. Though his recommendation came that this is a very good school, and I believe that they offer exchange programs, you'll be able to travel abroad and all that. I had little faith about it, but 2 years later, when I was in Form 2, I was lucky to be among the 4 guys that got chosen to travel abroad and all that. And when I say make faith a habit, I now believe why they say kids really believe in a lot of things. That's why when you tell a kid you'll buy them a bicycle, they believe. Even if you don't have the money, they have that faith and they believe. And I believe if we have that mindset moving on in approaching our day-to-day lives, we might really break through in a lot of things that we pursue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Faith like little children. Somebody said, if you told a child, I'll make 4 swimming pools, he'll say, yeah, one for you, one for mommy, one for myself, one for my sister. They will not ask why others don't even have one. No reasoning. Thank you very much. Yes, the Ambulale media.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for this topic. It's come at the right time, especially now that we call Anyajina. COVID seems to have going back to hopefully China, or disappearing from the world. I think this topic is most ideal at this particular time, now that we have seen the worst. We have seen what we think is the worst of COVID and the worst of ourselves, because COVID came and also taught us, made us also start know each other and understand each other, the relationship between ourselves at personal, family, corporate level, even in the society, and even in the workplace. What comes to my mind about faith is that it takes me back to the days of my grandfather. He had faith. He was an orphan in a place called Game in Nyanza. He had faith. He went to his maternal grandparents' place because he was being mistreated. And while he was there, he decided his life will not remain just there, herding cattle and plowing. So he decided to go and board a train at Yala railway station to Kisumu. When he got to Kisumu, I'll come to Mjuaji, he got a job with Muindi as a houseboy. And for him, that was still not enough. Even the Muindi boss realized that there's a lot of potential in him. Told him, go aboard this train to Nairobi. There's a training institute that is Kenya, the East African Railways was starting at Kabete. It was called NITD, Native Industrial Training college. And that's what has now become the Kabete Technical, which is now, I think, is a vocational training center. To cut a long story short, he went there, was a pioneer, artisan, student. He got a job with the Kenya Railways and he worked for over 30 years, retired and he still had faith that God had bigger plans for him. With a little reading he could do. He read in the Baraza that there was some land settlement schemes that's being opened in Lambwe Valley. He applied and he went and he got 25 acres. And that's where he settled. Fast forward to where we are now. Now we have seen the worst of COVID and what it can do, and even to our faith. Our faith was shaken. There's no doubt about it. Now what is the way forward? For example, for me, when I left the nation, I went to Langaza College to do my master's program in African Studies. And I thought that was really what I needed. But then I would study very hard. Like now, OPP as a lecturer will be lecturing us. And Okiom Tata was one of my colleagues. But when the exam time came, I don't know what was happening. I was just going blank. Anyway, so after a while, I said, maybe this was not my calling. So I decided now I'm going to do other things. And now for the past 4 months, as I've been sharing, I've gone into working on a memoir in terms of travel blog. And I'm seeing that that faith that I've had and even God's blessing has made me now almost come to the end of it all. In other words, yes, we must have faith, but at the same time, God has gifted us, each and every one of us, in a different way. So let us not force ourselves that what your dad wanted is what you must have. Or maybe you go there and say, everybody is doing this business. Why don't I also do it? No, you must have a calling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You brought in a very beautiful angle. And when you mentioned faith in your faith that existed in your grandmother, I remembered the writing of Paul, Apostle Paul. I think he was talking to Timothy. Faith that first existed in your grandmother, I think Lois. And of course, you are mentioning something that we discussed earlier, that we need to know our calling. Thank you very much. Yes, Elsie.
Thank you, OPP. I wanted to follow up on what John was talking about. And thank you, John, for reminding me about that young man who was named under 40, and he's no more. And as I think of this topic that you're talking about today, faith in yourself, one thing I've been challenging myself is, Elsie, remain connected. Remain connected to who you are. Remain connected to others. Remain connected to God. Let God be the object of your faith. And it broke my heart because, to be honest with you, I bleed every time I hear somebody has committed suicide. And I'm like, really, did he really have to? And I was appreciating as I read that article that the young man knew counseling and he had that option of going for counseling. And yet, oh dear, he's no more. The things just spiraled downwards. So just being connected, for me, that's what I'm thinking of this time. And knowing what I can, what I cannot do, what am I working towards, and even learning to say no because of self-care.
Thank you very much, Elsie. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Christine Sadia.
Thank you very much. I came in a little bit late, so I may have missed a bit, but I thank God that I have had a bit of the intervention and conversation. And the one that intrigued me most was when somebody was saying that believe in you, having faith that is grounded not only in the institution of your religious you're not going to church and not the faith that is not going to church every day, but it's a different kind of faith that you yourself has your grounding into a greater being that you know, and you know that even when you are on your own, that there is a greater power that can compel you to do certain things. I think that faith is built on some fundamental grounding or pillars that perhaps we need later to find. I'm talking about this because I've been in church leadership for a long time. And sometimes, and what I wanted to intervene about is that if you put your faith in a religious institution called church, you may sometimes lose it. Because sometimes that place and individuals around you, if you look up to them, they may be some of your breaking points. I talk about church leadership. And if you go to church and you confess certain faith, and you find that that faith there becomes not your anchor, because people go to places of worship thinking that we are sisters in Christ, like it has been said in the good book. But you find that could also be a point where your conflicts begin to grow and you begin to doubt your faith. So I just wanted to confirm with the person that says, it's not attending the church, but this faith that we are talking about, that will even get you not to begin to doubt yourself and begin to say, enough is enough. COVID has ravaged me enough. I don't have enough in my house. All that I have is gone. Like Odiambo was saying, what do I do next? Do I take a rope or do what compels me? For me, I have walked several of those journeys. And sometimes I think I remember this one point that I came to a situation. I was in South Africa, and sort of like one morning I woke up and I thought that God does not exist. And getting me from that place was almost took somebody 2 days, somebody who knew me well. Because for me, my children raised alarm to a friend of mine. And told them, since we were born and we are now big like this, we have never had mom say, God does not exist. And when I reached a point when I said, God does not exist, the only anchor, that the only people that got me to return back was a friend of mine, that because my own children had known the faith that I had in Christ and how I've walked my journey with God. If they had not raised alarm, I do not know what then would have been my anchor. But it took my friend 2 days of sitting from morning. She drove from Pretoria to my house to Johannesburg. We got out of the house, we sat. 2 days. We are with that lady 2 days. Her faith was not as strong as my faith in Christ. I was the one mentoring them, but they are the ones who got me back. So sometimes things of the world may shake you, but we need, even as it's shaking us, that we need to have the bells that somebody could ring, because I think suicide comes in when you are alone completely and somebody cannot see a single way that say that this one is now going to a place that we may lose the person. If my own children had not heard me utter that word, that me, in this one, God does not exist anymore, I think I would have lost it. So that is what I want to share. I do not know who will ground that, but I know there's a man of God here who had spoken and had said, so how do we find that faith? And how sometimes things of the word can shake your faith. But I got encouraged in this word that says, faith is the substance of things not seen. So when now I got that, you could be looking at these things that you see, but it's the substance things that you have not seen. So then I got back to a place where I said, let me find this thing that has not been seen. And I want to thank you for this platform. I think this is very important for this sharing, even as we move. COVID has not completely gone, but it's going down. But let's hope we are now trusting in God. But what breaks my heart, brethren, is that I have not slept for months since the Ukraine thing came in. I see with those women and children being bombed in maternity hospitals, and being a female doctors, we have mobilized doctors to go to Ukraine and we are supporting, but it is not enough. Where is the world going? So those can shake your faith, but I trust in a bigger God who will also deliver the Ukrainians from what they are going through. Thank you very much for this particular timely subject. I appreciate.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You remind me that when I joined the university, one of the essays we were given the first time for general cause, common cause, was, if God exists, why does he allow terrible things to happen? I'm not asking this to open another discussion, but just bringing your point that at some point people think like God does not exist. Yes, Lucy, I think that will be the last comment, and then we summarize and go because we are past time.
Hello, Peter Paul. This is Dr. Mwangi, Lucy's husband.
Yes, Daktari. Good to hear you.
The topic was very good. So
yeah,
thank you for the talk you gave us on the faith. I got the tail end as well. And I just wanted to share, I was inspired to share that I found what you have said to be the happens with faith in us to be true. That when you have a situation is going bad, sometimes you talk to God and try to negotiate with him to let you survive or to let me survive. And sometimes when things start going well, the problem comes in that when you see things are going well, you decide now, let me take charge and let me now also try this other way of doing them. Then when they go down, you will come crashing down and you wonder what happened. And I thank you for reminding me, and also the others who are listening, to consider that we should not try to take charge of what God is doing. And though I have the idea that, or I have the experience that when I was a young chap, I decided to do a certain course in medicine. I used to tell my grandmother before I was age 4 that I'm going to become a doctor. And when I was trying to pursue that one, at certain stages, I would go and find that the academic line has collapsed. I can't go on unless I take a repeat. I cannot achieve that goal. And people would dissuade me. My father once told me, instead of doing medicine, why don't you go for pharmacy? And I even got a slot to do pharmacy. I said, no, I have to stick to my original goal. So I like your words that we can change course, but we cannot change the goal. Finally, I'd like to say that though now I've worked for a long time and I retired from my last job some time back, the challenges still come up. And I think the problem or the issue here is that when God brought us down to this earth, he brought us to do certain things, to bring out our callings, develop them, and make them bring light to the whole communities or even countries or even the world. And the glory goes back to him. But when we forget our role, which is to follow his lead, then he takes us back to the ground. He allows us to go back to the ground and we repeat a lesson. So even like last week, I was struggling with some issues like how do I pursue this opportunity without dropping the other one? And also, sometimes when I try to do things my way, banking on some revenue which is going to come from a certain quarter, it doesn't come. Then I find I'm back now down to back to the beginning of the class, of the lesson. So I think in this, I agree with you. And I thank you for reminding us that we should let God be God and ourselves retain our small role. And that is actually, for me, has been my biggest struggle in my life. To let God be God and to say, to be still and to know God is God. And when things are not working, to just learn to relax and to let things happen, because we never die off completely. though we always fear at the beginning of a crisis that how will I survive this one? And then after so many years, like I live for so long, you find every day you're still alive and you're still kicking and still doing things. So thank you for those reminders, and thank you for your very inspiring talk. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. And for bringing all these two things together. I'd like to summarize it and answer part of the questions that also Christine was asking. We started by saying some of the formulas that we can use. One is we can reason it out. Reasoning it out would entail one, has it been done before? If it's been done before, then it can be done again. And if somebody else had done it, if somebody else had gone through this, which I'm going through, then I too can go through it and excel and win. Another thing, and that brings us to a second method, which is called experience. You see, there is this story that goes around usually at the beginning of the year, which is an excerpt from, I think, a book of, is it Things Fall Apart or something like that, that Okonkwo talks about how they struggled that year and didn't reap much. And then they say, if we manage to go through that year, even this year, we are going to make it. And that is a very powerful thing. When you look at how far you've come, we always appreciate only when we look back where we've come from. If we look forward, we may get scared. Let me interject something. We are only tempted when something terrible is happening in our lives, when we are weak. It is at our weakest point when we will meet the greatest temptation. Look at Jesus when he was hungry. He'd been out there for 40 days, 40 nights, not eating. That is when he's tested with food. It is when you are broke, you are brokest, that is when you will be tested with bribe. It is when you are at your most vulnerable state when you're going to experience these tests. And so that is where your faith must be demonstrated. So we can look back into our experience. How did it work before? In the Acts of Apostles, we are also told it's by testimony. Our testimony and the testimony of others will be able to help us go through. Another thing is, what's your heart telling you? Faith sometimes, and many times for that matter, will defy logic. If you want to bring logic in it, it will never make sense. I remember, for example, in our building, we had a problem with our building. I had a lot of faith, and this faith was cultivated a particular Saturday. I had gone for a retreat. News came in on a Friday, but then on Saturday, I was calming myself down, like somebody just said, Dr. just said, you calm yourself, you stay still. Calming myself and reminding myself, be still and know that I'm God. Things are going to work out. And it's that deposit of faith that people could draw from. So we will do things that defy logic. People will advise you things that make sense. They make logical sense. But if you don't look, if you check in your heart and your heart tells you that's not the right way, you better trust your heart, because your heart is what God uses to talk to you. Your heart knows much, much more than you will ever know, because it is part of the universal. That's a very big term. I don't know whether it will make sense now if you are hearing it for the first time, but your heart is part of the universal. It's part of God. So that is where we can listen to what is right. The other thing is the stories that we keep going in our minds, the affirmations. What is it that we are confessing? What is it that we are seeing? If we keep confessing the wrong things, I assure you 115% they are going to happen. If you keep seeing yourself failing, if you keep seeing yourself losing the battle, you're going to lose the battle. So you must rewire the message that goes on in your mind. What is it that you are telling yourself? I'm weak. I can get this COVID. Oh, I can't get this job. I don't know anybody. I don't know connections. By the way, when I was leaving college and going to employment, lots of people were saying, do you know anybody? There are no jobs in Kenya. But that was not my belief. I believe I will get it. If I want it, I'll get it. And I have lots of stories about faith and how it's gone beyond logic. And I know for sure that the stories that we tell ourselves, what is it that you tell yourself in the morning? And part of what you can do, use the Psalms. Psalms, very powerful. You see, like Psalms 23 says, it doesn't matter, even if I'm walking in the dark valley of death, I know you are there with me. So I have nothing to fear. Now, if the Lord is your shepherd, yeah, take, for example, some of us have done grazing or shepherding, something like that. And you always take care of the animals that are under your care. You do not want them to get lost. You do not want them to get into trouble. So if the Lord is your shepherd, then what do you have to fear? There is Psalm 91. It doesn't matter what happens around me. 1,000 may fall on my right side, 10,000. But I have nothing to fear because your staff works with me. If we know what we can recite, if we know what we can, and we can use them in prayer, even when praying for other people. Sometimes we are told, if you want to pray for healing, you can you can pick an excerpt, a text, a scripture that talks about healing. Maybe when Jesus healed this woman who had gone through bleeding for many years, had suffered in the hands of physicians. And you pick your faith from there and recite the same. So what stories are going into our minds? The repetition, somebody said it again. It is through repetition and repetition. And that's why in church, some of us say, I believe in God, the Father. That is Apostles' Creed. That thing is powerful. It took me time to understand it, to digest it. And I told me, do I really believe in God? Until ultimately, I believed every section, until the last part, life everlasting. Does it exist? So faith comes from what we hear, what we listen to. When we watch too much negative news, that is what deposits our faith. And that's why going to places where this is repeated helps us. And that's where a church can help. But believing just in the church does not necessarily help. Then what enters our minds? What is it that we read? What is it that we listen to? What is it, whom do we relate with, and what do we tell? What do they tell us? Very, very critical in building our faith. And the other thing is our level of knowledge. If I don't know something, I'm going to be afraid of it. So my level of knowledge, like right now, people know more about COVID than they knew before it started. Now we know that less than 1%, less than 0.5% can really get put down because of COVID. Now that alone builds our faith. And now we know that we can always make it. We do not have to be part of the small percentage. Now we know that if you have immune issues, then you are more vulnerable and things like that. So our level of knowledge will always increase our level of faith. And that is the way I'd like to summarize this. So let's get to know what is our experience, what is the testimony, what logic can we use, reasoning, somebody else who's gone through it, what are we telling ourselves, the testimonies, the confessions, the affirmations, what is it that goes into our minds, what knowledge, what level of knowledge do we have? And that's why I love that summary that I always give, that R is given by T plus A, R being the results, then equals T, which is thought, the thoughts that we entertain, which is a factor of our knowledge and our attitude. Attitude is that level of faith. And then what we do. Thank you very much. We've gone a little more overboard. We've just done more than 10 minutes after the hour. But I think it was worth it, and maybe we will need to revisit this. I know enough of us haven't contributed, including Men of Cloth. I can see enough other people joined us today, including my own MCA. Yeah, good to see you around. And thank you very much for attending. If somebody has some burning last comment, if you have a question, you can shoot it, but we will answer it next week. But burning comment you can make. Otherwise, for those who are not with us in a WhatsApp group, you are joining us for the first time, you can always send a WhatsApp to me, and I will be able to, if you are interested, we can always add you into our WhatsApp group, and we continue the conversation through the week. My number is given there, and my name, if you are seeing me for the first time, is Otieno Paul Peter, given in the chat. Thank you very much, and we can do